If you mix the CGI from the prequels with the plot of the original Star Wars and then dressed it up in a G.I. Joe trench coat, you'd get this 2009 movie. It's basically Spy Kids on creatine, and I don't know with a cast this stacked how this one didn't end up being more popular than it was. It's directed by the guy that made The Mummy. It's day 65 of 365. Today's movie, G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra. Directed by Stephen Sommers and starring Channing Tatum, Marlon Wayans, Dennis Quaid, Sienna Miller, Brendan fucking Fraser. There are so many people in this goddamn movie. I was losing my mind because I totally forgot the cast of this film. I argue that this movie would not get made today simply for the fact that it pits the U.S. Army against tech billionaires. That's something that we've learned in 2025 doesn't really happen. They kind of go hand in hand, but this movie wants to imagine a world where we could actually see them going to war with each other. Seeing this as a teen, I remember actually being kind of confused by the finale. We weren't used to these over-the-top blockbuster CGI moments, and so I wasn't exactly sure what I was tracking on screen at any given time. As an adult, I started to figure out, though, this movie's basically Star Wars, and I can actually prove it. I have receipts. I do remember being thoroughly entertained by it. I was a fan of the Crackdown series growing up. Shout out to the Xbox 360 era. And that's exactly what the middle of this movie feels like, and that's very fitting for a G.I. Joe movie. Instead of Jedi, we get Earthbound ninjas, and so let me break down the 3 reasons I think this is basically a Star Wars movie. My first piece of evidence, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are basically Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. Now, instead of lightsabers, we get ninja fidget spinners, but I think that it's still a very apt analogy to make here. We even get flashbacks throughout the movie acting as the prequels within our story here. The showdown on the big, massive bad guy base is essentially what happens in the middle of A New Hope, and they've condensed the end of A New Hope down so that instead of there being 2 visits to the Death Star, everything happens within 1 visit. Honestly, A New Hope could be cut down to work for that too. Having to leave and go to the Yavin base and create a plan and come back doesn't technically have to happen and could be expedited to shorten that movie. There's a 90-minute cut of A New Hope out there, is kind of what I'm saying. Also, in very Obi-Wan fashion, we get the bad guy being dropped down a large endless hole, essentially. I think that's very similar to what happened to Darth Maul, and so the lines and parallels can really be drawn here. Again, it's not a one-to-one. They're kind of condensing the story down to make sure it happens within 1 movie. They didn't know if they were going to get a sequel. My second bit of evidence is this finale works out almost identically to the one in New Hope. The Cobra's base is basically the Death Star. Instead of X-Wings, we have underwater submarines. We have people playing out dramatic finales to their life stories on the Death Star. This is all looking very, very familiar to me at this point. There's even a timed countdown, which something I wanted to appreciate here is that when on screen it says they have 18 minutes until the White House gets destroyed, 18 minutes plays out in real time across the movie, up to the point of impact when Ripcord is able to keep the nanobots from crashing into the White House. I absolutely love little editing details like that. They make a movie for me. I feel like they're not being super subtle here, and nor do they need to be. This is G.I. Joe, this is campy, and if Star Wars is anything, it's campy. That's really good direct source material to pull from in order to make a movie that kind of looks and feels similar enough, but earthbound enough that you're not gonna notice it until I start to point it out. Even the Crackdown bit in Paris, where they have the suits of armor and they're out using them and practicing for the first time. This feels so similar to Luke joining the rebellion after seeing things play out poorly for him at the beginning of A New Hope. I love that this movie is able to play with these tropes and introduce them in new ways we hadn't seen before. And say what you will about that CGI. Honestly, I think the Paris scene is why I got so excited for the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover. They would have played really, really well together. These toys mix. My last bit of evidence lies within Duke. Duke is the classic farm boy turned hero that joins the rebellion. This is a salt of the earth, kind of charming, kind of dumb, normal guy that's getting introduced to a world that he doesn't fully understand but has always imagined being a part of. He's the white bread heart of the story, a natural leader haunted by a failure in the past with Rex, and doesn't want to join until he realizes how high the stakes are and how important he's become to them. Even his recruitment into the Joes mirrors Luke's recruitment into the rebellion. This is a guy that gets dressed up in shiny new equipment as he gets sent back out into the field to finally take down the evil that's been plaguing them. He's a Campbellian hero, but in G.I. Joe flavor. And again, we're forgiving all the camp because that is the source material that they're working from and the source material for this inspiration. But what do you think? Did I jump the shark submarine by saying that this is like Star Wars, or will your next rewatch keep Star Wars in mind? Our last 2 movies were horror. Now we're doing a back-to-back sci-fi with District 9 up next. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow.